First of all, I would like to thank Father Ben Bradshaw for allowing us to visit this lovely church for our pilgrimage. The main reason for having an annual pilgrimage is to visit a site of Anglo-Saxon interest, because the Anglo-Saxon Church, before the Great Schism of 1054, was a part of the one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church referred to in the Creed, upholding the original Orthodox Christian belief from Apostles' time. In returning to the Orthodox Church, we are returning to our Christian roots, to the same church which St. Fursey belonged to, which St. Wellston, the last saint of Norfolk, belonged to, the same church which Wittenberger belonged to, or St. Augustine, or St. Gregory, or St. Theodore, the seventh Archbishop of Canterbury, belonged to, the same church which Columba belonged to, the same church which St. Patrick belonged to, and the same church which St. David of Wales all belonged to. There are many sites of Anglo-Saxon interest in Norfolk which remind us of our Orthodox past. We have visited them several times already. We visited Horsey in the year 2004, a very early example of a round-towered Anglo-Saxon church. In 2003, we visited the church of St Edmund at Fritton Lake, just on the outskirts of Great Yarmouth, with its Anglo-Saxon apse, and also their fascinating wall paintings. In the year 2002, we visited St Fursey at Borough Castle and saw where his monastery was. In the year 2001, we visited St Felix at Babingley. He was the first bishop of Norwich, or shall we say the first bishop in Norfolk. In the year 2000, we visited St Blythe at Martham, and she was the mother of St Wellston. And we visited his church at Barbara in 2005. We visited St Wittenberger at Holcombe in 1999, and in preparation for our reception into the Orthodox Church in 1998, we visited St Fursey again at Borough Castle. And in our Anglican days, we visited the Anglo-Saxon Cathedral at North Elmham. And in 1997, we visited the 7th century church at Cotley Clay, adjoining the Iceni Centre. In 1996, we visited St Wittenberger at East Dereham. In listing these pilgrimages, I hope I have not bored you, but remind you of our rich Orthodox heritage here in Norfolk, and there is more to come. I would like to remind you too of the life of our own St Fursey, who brought the Orthodox Christian faith to Norfolk in about the year 630. He came from a royal family in Northern Ireland, or Ulster. His father was called Fintan, a local prince, and before coming to East Anglia, St. Fursey had forsaken the world and had established several monasteries in what is now the Diocese of Tuam. He was a typical pilgrim for Christ and sought to go and preach the gospel wherever there was an opening, to use the phrase of Bede. We do not know for sure which way St. Fursey came. He may have come in a northerly route across northern Britain, or he may have even come on a more southerly route along the English Channel. There is an island called Fursey Island near Poole, so there may be a link here. St. Sigbert, the King of East Anglia, who was a Christian, he gave St. Fursey and his companions, Phelan, Altan, Goban and Deco, the ruins of a Roman fort at Borough Castle, near Great Yarmouth, in which to build their monastery. The area was excavated in 1958 by the archaeologist Mr. Green, who was convinced that he had found the remains of St. Fursey's monastery, including the footings of the monks' round cells and also his chapel. Other companions joined St. Fursey later, such as Algese, Corbican, Ito, Lectan, Morguel, Radolphus, Bion, and Meldan. All these were listed among the saints in the Orthodox Church. We do not know much about them. Safe to say that their labours in Norfolk and Suffolk for the kingdom of Christ survived the attack of the pagan King Penda of Mercia. Even though King Sigbert died in battle in 635, King Anna, his cousin, succeeded him, and his daughters, Etheldreda, Withburga, Sexburga, and Sethfrida, are all counted among them as saints. Just as St. Fursey was troubled by the vast number of people who came to him in Ireland, so he was troubled by the vast numbers of converts who came to him at Borough Castle. In order to seek solace, he retired to a place of peace and quiet, which may be Cockley Clay. And eventually he crossed over to France and settled in Lagny on the River Marne about the year 645. He established another monastery at Peroni, and he died on January the 16th, 650. His brother Phelan succeeded him as abbot, and he was martyred in 654, and he was succeeded by Altan, who died in 686. He had spent some time at a town called Crike in Yorkshire before he went to France, where he is remembered. I have spoken before about the wonderful visions that St. Fursey had, which he had at the time of his stay at Borough Castle, which seemed to prove his sanctity, as did his incorrupt state of his body after his death, when his body was moved from the place of his death to a more spacious shrine at Peroni. It is worth remembering that in later years, the Mother Church of the English Orthodox Christianity in Canterbury had a treasured relic of St. Fursey, and it was given pride of place in the most important relic in the east end of the crypt, and it remained there throughout Anglo-Saxon times until the Norman conquest. These days, there is much interest in Celtic Christianity, and there are several societies, such as the Society of St. Hilda and St. Aidan, and of course the Pilgrims of St. Fursey, who try to maintain and nurture interest in Celtic Christianity in Norfolk. Celtic Christianity had a great love for God's creation and saw God everywhere in everything, which is of course at the heart of Orthodox spirituality. Orthodox Christianity, of course, in these parts originated in Ireland, and in northern Britain, Celtic Christianity was understood to be an idiom of Orthodox Christianity and not a separate church. St. Columba referred to the Orthodox fathers in his writings. He had a special regard for Basil, who wrote the first rule for monks in the 5th century, and he influenced St. Augustine and St. Columba and St. Aidan and St. Fursey. They had no idea of belonging to a separate Celtic church. They belonged to the one church founded by our Lord and his apostles in Jerusalem. And we are privileged to belong to the same church. The Celtic saints had a great love of beauty, which they saw everywhere. We see this in the beautiful illuminated manuscripts of the Lindisfarne Gospels and also in the Book of Kells. They loved carved and intricate lines and great colour. There was a great dislike for straight lines in Celtic artistry. We also know that in the 7th century there were some round-towered churches in Ireland, such as Rathu in County Kerry, and another one at Monasterboice, just south of Dublin, where St. Kevin was. Although these were taller and narrower than our round-towered churches, my hunch is that there is a link between the round-towered churches in Ireland, known to St. Fursey, and also the round-towered churches here in Norfolk. So let us consider the round-towered churches here, and especially here at Beeston St. Lawrence in particular. Mr. Good says that there are 175 round-towered churches still standing today, and there is evidence to show that there were many more. There are 120 round-towered churches in Norfolk alone today, and we owe Mr. Good a great debt because he has provided us with an excellent study of all the round-towered churches. Until his study, it was commonly supposed that the Anglo-Saxon churches were of wood and were replaced by the Normans after the conquest in 1066. Another idea was that they were defensive towers against the Vikings. Another idea was that the round towers were built of flint because there was no stone 4 square corners. These ideas were frequently repeated by one historian after another, but no detailed study was done. Although Mr. Good left school at 14 with no formal training in archaeology or history, his book shows that he had much more common sense than the professionals. In this book, Mr. Good refutes the conventional theories for the round tower churches. He also rejects the theory that they were built as bell towers in obedience to the decree of King Ethelstan in 937. He points out that by this time the Danes had become well-established Christians within the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of East Anglia and posed no threat. And the second wave of Viking invaders did not come until 978, by which time most of the round tower churches were already built and had been in use for a long time. These round tower churches were, on the whole, these towers were very short, rarely rising above 30 feet and at the most 35 feet, and many have been made higher in later years, as in the 14th century here at Bishop Lawrence. But originally, they were too short to be of any defensive use, and a good tree would have been a much better lookout position. Mr. Good also suggests that these round towers and these churches could be a lot earlier than was commonly supposed. The reasons he gave were these. 1. East Anglia being mainly a massive estuary into the North Sea, in ancient times it was not thickly wooded and would not have supplied enough timber for the early churches to be built by timber and by some further converts for all of them to be built of wood. Secondly, the early Christians of the 7th century did have plenty of flint to use. They also had the massive round bastions of the Roman fort at Borough Castle to inspire them, and those structures go back to the 3rd century. And thirdly, he also points out that the flints are plentiful in East Anglia for building purposes, and he also speaks of Norfolk pudding stone, also called conglomerate, which is a very dark brown or black stone, often impregnated with pebbles. It is very hard and appears in many churches, providing stone for corners. He also speaks of carstone, which can be carved, as in the Round Tower Church at Castle Acre. Some Round Tower churches also contain red brick, which could possibly be from Roman ruins. The conclusion of Mr. Good is that the round towers were not high enough to be of any use for defensive purposes, and not much good as a bell tower. Either only one reason for their being built was there to be porticos or entrance porches. Many churches were entered by west door, So we come back to the influence of Celtic Christianity and the love of the Celts for carves and rounded mouldings. And so we come at last to our consideration of this lovely church of B. St. Lawrence. Its very dedication to St. Lawrence suggests great antiquity, because St. Lawrence was Archdeacon of the Roman Church and was martyred in the year 258 during the great persecution of the Emperor Decius. It is not impossible that memory of him goes back to the time when Roman Christianity were in this locality, and this should not be forgotten. We know that there is 2 villages called Eccles in Norfolk, one near Norwich and the other on the coast, which suggests Christian Roman existence in Anglo-Saxon times in those villages. The church was first noted as a Saxon building by the Reverend John Gunn in 1847. It is of special interest because of the large size of the flints used in the tower and an impressive amount of black conglomerate. The flints and the stones were not layered in courses, and there were no fillets or joining stones between the tower and the west wall of the church, which means that the church and the tower were built at the same time. About 20 feet up on the north side of the tower is a triangular headed window with a frame of conglomerate, and at the same height on the west and south sides, similar windows are now blocked up. There is a small window near the ground floor on the west side of the tower, which is also now blocked up. It could have been the original doorway, or at only 4 feet from the ground. The 4 belfry windows were added in the 14th century at the top level of the tower, and these were later taken down. The internal diameter of the tower is 9 feet, and the walls are 3 feet thick. But the tower arch in the nave is also of great interest. It is very tall and narrow, typically Saxon, but the inner retaining walls are different. The north is 3 foot and 7 inches, and the south is 4 feet 7 inches, which means it is now off centre with the tower. Originally, the archway was even narrower in the nave, but the tower was left off centre. The only explanation is that Mr. Good can give is that the narrow Saxon nave was widened by 4 feet on the south. This can be seen on the southwest corner, and the tower arch may also have been widened to bring it nearer to the centre, but did not really work. But a 13th century stone arch was slotted into the gap. Often even more interesting is the amount of conglomerate there is used in the tower, which seems to disprove the conventional theory that the round towers were built of flint because of the lack of stone. Conglomerate is a very hard stone. We can see that it was used at the corners of the nave in this church with no difficulty at all. If the Anglo-Saxons of the 7th century could build the corner of the nave in black conglomerate, They could have built a square tower as well if they had wanted to. Why build a round tower? Unless there was an important reason for doing so. My own hunch is that the builders of the round tower churches in eastern Norfolk built them in this way as a tribute to Celtic influence of St. Fursey and his missionaries in this area. But let us also look at the west end of the nave. Remember the outside north wall. There is a herringbone design 10 feet up in conglomerate, and this wall is typically Saxon, being only 2 foot 6 thick. And of great interest is the line of black conglomerate 28 feet from the northwest corner of the nave. This would probably have been the original west wall of the Anglo-Saxon church, and it was not much more than 15 feet wide. There is no evidence for a narrower chancel, so the Anglo-Saxon church was typically small. Remember that our little chapel at St. Fursey's is only 13 feet wide and 18 feet long. The west door to the apse, it is clear that the church was greatly altered in later centuries. The nave was widened and lengthened, and a chancel was added, and much restoration work was done in Georgian times, with the ceiling being a copy of what can be seen in the nearby Beeston Hall. This lovely Anglo-Saxon church, going back maybe as far as the 7th or 8th century, is a testimony to the Orthodox Church and to the belief of St. Fursey and the Anglo-Saxon builders, who were definitely influenced by Celtic spirituality, which he had brought with him from Ireland. But what relevance is all this to do with modern Britain? Through the centuries, the fragmentation of Christ's church, the one holy Catholic and apostolic church which he founded, has been caused by human sin and pride, attempting to improve upon what our Lord had revealed. So we had the Great Schism in 1054, the medieval Roman Church and its additions, and the Protestant Reformation as a reaction were all a result of this pride. And all the many sects and denominations has resulted in what we see as a broken and shattered church and a broken and shattered society. And the lives of people is affected by this, and the strain and stress of modern living and the tendency to seek fulfillment in pleasure seeking tells us that there is no real satisfaction in life apart from our relationship with Christ. And some people have a spiritual yearning and look at the strange cults because of the conventional denominations turn them off. But thanks be to God that Orthodox Christianity and its wonderful wholeness and completeness satisfies our deepest spiritual longings. This is the Orthodox way and can bring health and healing to our souls and can bring about the healing of the divisions of society. And the round tower churches of eastern Norfolk us to this Orthodox heritage. And in becoming Orthodox, we are returning to our roots, and we are not importing a foreign cult